Welcome to MWC City Council meeting this evening. I'll call this meeting to order. Mr. Sullivan, could you come and lead us in the invocation, and then Councilman McClure lead us in the pledge. Please stand.
Would you join me in prayer, please? Gracious Lord, Heavenly Father, we want to come before your throne this evening, Father, and we want to thank you for this occasion and for these men and women and their willingness to serve in this capacity for this city. Father, I ask your blessing be upon them tonight and their decisions that are before them. Father, I just pray that your discernment and your wisdom be upon them, and Father, that peace as well. Father, we thank you for this great city that we enjoy. Father, we have many dedicated people that labor here to provide good quality services, and we just thank you for the quality of life we enjoy here in this community. We give you glory and honor for that. Father, and there are many men and women who are all over the world, Father, ensuring that this great land is free. We thank you for their sacrifice, their family's sacrifice, and we ask a blessing of safety and peace be upon them as well as they serve this great land. Ultimately, Father, we thank you for forgiveness from sin. We thank you for the blood of Jesus that cleanses us, and we ask all of these favors in your Son's holy name. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Move on to community-related announcements.
Just a couple that I'd like to share with everyone this evening. With the Labor Day weekend approaching, wanted to remind everyone that those that receive sanitation or recycling services on September 5th, that's Monday, that those services will be provided on September 7th, and that the transfer station will be open the weekend of Labor Day. The doggy paddle is, which is the final event of the summer. I'm sorry, I need to double check something. Okay, Vaughn, help me out here.
Yes, sir.
Doggy paddle, is it on the 5th? Monday the 5th at 6:30. I've got that, the Plaza Palooza, which is our fall concert series down in Charles J. Johnson, commences on September 5th at 7 p.m. With the Ross Clayton Band at 7 p.m., their country band, and I think that's all I have.
Anybody else? Yeah. Well, we'll move into the proclamations. This one's kind of bittersweet for me. Shane and Sandy, can you come down here? Last three council meetings, we've retired about 120 years of experience and service to the city. And Shane is the latest one from the fire department. I've known Shane ever since I started at the police department. And Sandy is a teacher at Soldier Creek Elementary and has taught both of my boys. So we've have a long history together, and like I said, this is bittersweet for me, but I'll make it quick as possible. Proclamation, whereas Mr. Shane Campbell began his career with the Midwest City in 1984 as a firefighter, working hard, serving our community, or our city. He is promoted up from apparatus operator to captain, then to training major, before retiring on August 23rd, 2016. And whereas Shane received the Mid-Del 100 Club Firefighter of the Year Award in 1991, the Veterans of Foreign War Firefighter of the Year in 2015, and was presented excellence for participation in the MWC Firefighter Clowns program as Juggles by Kiwanis Club. Whereas one of his greatest passions is teaching the traditions of the fire service, instructing both for Eastern Oklahoma County VOTEC and Oklahoma State University Fire Services in cities throughout the state of Oklahoma. Whereas Shane's career, his recognitions include his initiative in leading the way to solve complex problems with equipment within the fire stations. He's received numerous letters of appreciation from victims and their families for treating them with great empathy and respect. His city co-workers for his help in his various situations which could have proven dangerous, if not for Shane, but for his crew. Whereas Shane's commendations include his volunteerism in such events as Veterans Day Parade, Children's Safety Fair, and Optimus Bicycle Rodeo, and the Special Olympics. Now therefore, I, Matt Dukes, Mayor of Midwest City, do hereby proclaim August 23rd, 2016 as Shane Campbell Day. We gotta get the picture. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we now move into the consent agenda of the meeting. These items are placed on the consent agenda so that members of the City Council, by unanimous consent, can approve routine agenda items by one motion. If any proposed item on the consent agenda does not meet with the approval of all council members or the members of the audience wish to discuss a proposed item with the council, that item will be removed and heard in regular order.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second motion.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye by roll call vote.
One.
Oh, we just do consent on that? Oh.
Yeah, it's all brand
It's a
new.
new deal.
I'm sorry, I was so confused. What, we vote on the consent agenda?
Roll call vote.
We have to do roll call.
We had to move to a roll call vote on all votes.
How'd that happen?
Marianne.
You got a new city attorney for an acting crew.
Okay, gotcha. I just want to know what happened. I got sick last week, I'm gone 1 week, everything's gone.
See, you miss a meeting, that's what happened.
Dad, come and get sick one time. Well, this is a tough vote. I'll vote yes.
2, 3,
Aye.
4,
Aye.
5, 6. Mayor.
Aye. Next item on the agenda.
First discussion item is PC 1876, public hearing with discussion consideration of approval of the preliminary plat of Oakwood Landing for the property described as a tract of land located near the northwest corner of Northeast 10th Street and Westminster Road, lying on the northeast quarter of Section 31, Township 12 North, Range 1 West of the Indian Meridian, City of Midwest City, Oklahoma County, Oklahoma. This is a public hearing regarding a preliminary plat. Unfortunately, we're still attempting to resolve some drainage issues with regards to the preliminary plat, and staff would recommend that the item be continued until the September 27th meeting. That's the second meeting in September.
Move to
Since there are still issues that you're ironing out, are we better off to take no action in case something changes?
I would defer to the staff to see whether they felt like we were close. We felt that they were close to getting the issues resolved.
Yeah, staff's had a number of conversations with the adjacent property owner and the applicant, and they feel like they can get this issue resolved.
If the applicants wanted, they asked to continue it, right?
Yes.
Okay, if they asked to continue, then I just go with that.
Move to continue.
Second motion.
Have a motion and a second. Go ahead with the roll call vote.
1,
Yes.
2, 3,
Aye.
4,
Aye.
5, 6, Mayor.
Aye. I have to correct something on the consent agenda. Mr. Goslogger, did you want to pull an item off the consent agenda or just discuss it?
What was the agenda number, Mr. Mayor?
It was on the crosswalks. Number 9.
Ms. City Attorney, can I make a motion to rescind the vote for number 9?
Why don't you just pull it off and why don't you just wait and hear the discussion and then go back to it if you need to, if that's all right.
Mr. Goslogger, you want to come down and discuss the item?
During the debates over public safety over the
Mr.
last...
Goslogger,
Oh,
name and address, please.
Mr. Goldschlager, 1409 Evergreen Circle, Midwest City, Oklahoma. During the last year, there's been some talk over public safety, and one of the things that was discussed was our crosswalks, and specifically the Hawk crosswalk, and us spending money on crosswalks. And it's kind of important to me because I use the crosswalks all the time. According to the federal government statistics, 4,735 people died last year in pedestrian accidents. 150,000 pedestrians are killed every year just walking down the road. So being able to walk across the street's more than just a waste of money. It's literally life and death for the 150,000 people that end up in the hospital. So when someone says, well, we need to be spending that money on other things, I kind of take it to heart. Yeah. Also, I asked Mr. Harless to kind of give the public an idea of how much money we're spending and how much money we're getting back. And I'd like to have him discuss that so it's on the record so people understand it. Because the city spends money on public safety things that may not quite be police and fire, but still is a public safety issue. Sidewalks are a public safety issue. Crosswalks are a public safety issue. And having a safe city means more than just police and fire. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't want calls about police and fire. They're important, but there are other things too. And I just wanted to go on the record for that. And would you explain to the public the amount of money we're spending and what we're going to get back? And that's all I'd like. Thank you.
Mr. Goldschlager, having almost become one of those statistics last week, I concur with you 100%. Go ahead, Mr. Harless.
Well, I defer that to the city engineer, Patrick, not only for the engineering that we just passed tonight for the pedestrian signals is what, 80-something thousand, but also what we've done over the last couple of years, if you've got those off the top of your head.
Yeah, these programs are an initial investment by the city that we get a much larger reward in return. The federal government provides 100% of the construction costs and the installation costs of these projects to local municipalities. The only requirement they put on us is to engineer and get these projects ready to go out to bid. So we have gone through in certain projects like this one that's on the agenda is an $80,000 investment in design, but it'll reward the city back $550,000 to $600,000 worth of improvements. And those come up year to year, whether through striping the crosswalks and through our first phase of these improvements. We've had the similar type of returns. The first time we went through this, it was another large investment as far as engineering the project, but the return was several-fold. So I believe in these projects, and I think they're a great benefit for the city, and I appreciate your support when we come forward with these items.
Thank you, gentlemen. Miss City Attorney, can the consent vote stand?
It can unless one of you wants to rescind it. It really wasn't a request to change it.
We're good.
Well,
Okay, the vote stands, and go ahead and move to the next item. Thank you, Mr. Gosslager, and your participation.
And I'd also say that those projects, when we do something like that, it also supports the implementation of our plan, our ADA transition plan with the Americans with Disability Act, and we're obligated to have a plan to address needed improvements to address handicap needs within the community, and it is a step in that direction. So, next item is PC 1877, public hearing with discussion consideration of approval of an ordinance to redistrict from R6 single family residential and PUD plan unit development governed by the C3 community commercial district to a plan unit development to be governed by the C3 community district and C4 general commercial district, and a resolution to amend the comprehensive plan for a portion of the area of request from low density residential to office retail for the properties described as a part of the northeast quarter of section 35, township 12 north, range 2 west, located at 801 and 825 North Douglas Boulevard. This is a public hearing. The owner is Gary Parker. The applicant is Fred Quinn. Mr. Quinn, do you want to present your case to the council?
Yes, thank you. Fred Quinn, 1390 South Douglas, Midwest City. I'm the applicant for Gary Parker, who has two businesses on this tract of land now. It's about 7.5 acres in aggregate with three tracks. And so it's a rezoning request, an amended PUD request, and a preliminary plat. Part of this application involves a sign. There is a sign on the present Parker Brothers Roofing, which is what I call a monument sign. It's about 7 feet wide and about as high as I am. So the owner, Gary Parker, strongly believes that even though we know that this would require a variance of the sign ordinance, he strongly believes that the present sign serves as a place to show his customers where to turn in. And he needs a sign that meets the city sign ordinances as far as height and area, but he needs a second sign on this one site where his roofing company is that would allow him to better advertise his business. And it's that variance which we came before the Planning Commission and coming to you now requesting that you approve that variance and approve his ability to do a second sign on that tract where his roofing business is now. So that concludes my introduction to the subject.
As discussed upstairs during the briefing, this request, Mr. Harless is only approving 3 signs total for the entire plat.
Yes, in order to follow the sign ordinance, staff would recommend that only 3 signs be permitted, one for tract 1, 1 sign for tract 2, 1 sign for tract 3, and if Mr. Parker prefers the monument, the very attractive sign that's out there, he can certainly keep that, but he would not be permitted to put a pole sign up. If that's what he wants to do, is keep that sign. But it's a very narrow frontage considering overall, and sometimes if there's a really long length of frontage, there's been cases where there's been multiple signs, but this is not very much street frontage to try to put 4 signs along that property.
Can we go to the map that's got the colors on it? I'm real dumb. Those colors are sure helpful.
This one?
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay.
So Parker Brothers Roofing is the sign that's below, is the lot below the stripes area of request?
Above.
The sign, it's on track 1.
So on track 1 is the monument turn in here sign.
Well, it didn't say turn in here. It's just a sign that says Parker Brothers
It says
Roofing.
Parker Brothers Roofing.
It's a monument. We do have room in our ordinances for that. Restriction.
I think it's called, considered a directional sign, is it
Yes.
not? Yes.
I've looked at this thing like 10 times. I don't know how I'm not keeping up with you guys. So we have track 3, track 1, track 2. On track 3 is the boulder sign. Track 1 and track 2 are going to have their own
No,
signs.
track 1 is gonna be, track 1 will have the boulder sign.
Track 1 is the boulder.
Yes.
Track 3 and track 2 are going to be individual signs.
Yes.
That's what the ordinance would say.
Yes.
And
He
the
wants an
variance
additional sign.
is an additional sign on number 1. But
Yes.
earlier you said 3 signs, but really we're just going to be adding 2 signs.
Well, he wants,
For a total of-
he wants to add 3 signs.
Oh, I'm not talking about that.
Okay.
I'm just talking about if we went by the book, they get a sign on 1 and a sign on 3, and that's all.
Right.
And a
Plus
sign
the
on
permitted-
2.
On 2, 1, 2, and 3.
They already have on 2, so they'd have 3 signs, 2 of them will be new on 1 and on 2 and 3. Gotcha. They want to add more. Gotcha. Caught up. Thank you.
But we can solve that issue. There's a small directional signs that if that's what he's using that for, he can get the 3 signs to look the same, 1, 2, 3, and then have a small directional sign there at the curb cut.
If that was his goal, but I really think he wants to keep the big monument sign. I think that he wants to do that and put up a pole sign.
Yeah, they wanna
Can't
get his
speak for him,
big
but
sign.
That's where he,
That's right. He's been pretty clear to me, and I think to others, that he wants to keep the sign that's there, so.
That's not really a directional sign. The boulder's not a directional sign. It's a sign. So that's the first one. If he wants to have a new sign, he needs to take down the boulder if we're going to follow the ordinance. I get real hesitant changing it because then you get in weird sticky places where you let one person have and not let another person have, and it gets weird. So I'd be with 2 and 3 getting a sign and not a new sign for 1. That's just my opinion.
So, Mr. Quinn, I guess what it's all boiled down to is the plat. The staff has recommended the request be approved, except there's only going to be 3 signs allowed on that frontage. If that's acceptable, we can either go ahead and vote on this as is, or we can pull it for further discussion.
Well, if it's headed for denial, I think I'd like to pull it for further discussion. I'm not sure where they,
Ms. Attorney, are we going to have to table this?
Well, I'd suggest posted for a public hearing, isn't it?
It is.
Then we need to open a public hearing for those to speak for and against in that. Then you should make your decision about whether you want to
Continue
move
it.
on it tonight or move it to another time. But
Okay.
do need to start in the public hearing.
Okay.
So this is a public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to speak to the council in support or in opposition to the proposed rezoning of this property to a PUD? Okay. No one has elected to come forward.
So you close the public hearing.
Okay, the public hearing on this particular issue is now closed.
Could entertain a motion to continue to.
When we continue, what would we be continuing it for? I just don't know what we're going towards.
If our only option as the council is going to approve 3 signs, no offense to Mr. Parker, whether he agrees with it or not, that's what we're going to do. So why kick this can down the road?
I'm right there with you. I'd say let's make a motion with the signs as we've discussed, take the vote. If that's not the will of the body, then we'll table it and figure out a new plan. But if that is the will of the body, then we have a decision. So I'll make a motion to approve, but only new signs for Lot 2, Lot 3, and the monument sign counts as a sign on one, so they wouldn't get a new sign.
Okay, I have a motion. I'll entertain a second. Have a motion and a second. Go ahead with roll call vote.
1,
Yes.
2,
Yes.
3,
No.
4,
Yes.
5,
Yes.
6, Mayor.
Yes. Motion passes. Next item.
Next item is PC 1878, public hearing with discussion and consideration of approval of the Parkwood preliminary plat for the property described as a tract of land lying on the west side of North Douglas between Northeast 10th Street and Reno in the northeast quarter of Section 35, Township 12 North, Range 2 West of the Indian Meridian, City of Midwest City, Oklahoma County, Oklahoma, addressed as 801 and 825 North Douglas Boulevard. This is a preliminary plat associated with the previous case. Mr. Harless, is there anything you want to add?
No, sir. The Planning Commission and staff both recommend approval.
This is a public hearing, so you need to, is there anyone here in the audience that wants to speak in favor or in opposition to the proposed preliminary plat of Parkworth preliminary plat?
Move to approve.
Second the motion.
Have a motion and a second. Go ahead with the roll call vote.
1,
Yes.
2,
Yes.
3,
Yes.
4,
Yes.
5,
Yes.
6, Mayor.
Yes. Motion carries. Next item.
Next item is PC 1879, discussion consideration of approval of the proposed final plat of Suns Meadow Edition located at 815 South Anderson between East Reno Avenue and Southeast 15th, described as a part of the northeast quarter of Section 5, Township 11 North, Range 1 West. The owner applicant is Charles Janet Cartledge. Proposed use are 4 single-family residential lots. All of the proposed improvements have been installed, and staff recommends approval of the final plat subject to the comments contained in the staff report.
This is a public discussion. Anyone to discuss this particular item?
Move to approve the item.
Have a motion and a second. Go ahead with the roll call vote.
1,
Yes.
2, 3,
Yes.
4,
Yes.
5, 6, Mayor.
Yes. Motion carries. Next item, please.
Next item is PC 1880, public hearing with discussion consideration of approval of an ordinance redistricting from R6 single-family detached residential to a plan unit development PUD governed by the C3 Community Commercial District for the property described as a part of the northwest quarter of Section 15, Township 11 North, Range 2 West, located at 7200 Southeast 29th Street. In this case, the owner applicant is the City of Midwest City, and the proposed use is the existing use of a park, water feature, and the Welcome Center that will remain, and the addition of a sign, public service sign, near the corner of 29th Street and Air Depot. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor or opposition to the proposed rezoning? There being none?
Before we do, this is going to be a wonderful addition for down there. This is something we've needed for a long time to be able to get down there. Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Go ahead with the roll call vote.
1,
Aye.
2,
Yes.
3,
Aye.
4,
Aye.
5,
Yes.
6, Mayor.
Aye. Motion carries. Next item.
Next item is discussion consideration of accepting a resolution opposing State Question 777 and State Question 779 and forwarding to the Governor's Office for consideration.
Mr. Bernard, you had signed up to discuss this item on, would you like to come forward and make your... Okay, thank you so much. This is a public discussion. Anybody have any
Actually, it's not, Mayor, so
Oh, I'm sorry.
public hearing's not required, so.
You cannot talk, Glenn. Never mind. We changed our minds.
Oh. Disregard Glenn Hensey.
Glenn Goldschlager, 1409 Evergreen Circle, Midwest City. There's a lot of misinformation being given on this, specifically that it's a 1% increase in the sales tax. It's not a 1% increase. It is a 22.22% increase in your sales tax. It is a 1 cent increase. 1 cent increase on a 4.5% state sales tax is a 22% increase. The Daily Oklahoman doesn't get this. Everything that's out here doesn't get it. They say 1 cent, 1%. It's not. And this is a 22% increase on food. This is a 22% increase on everything you buy that you pay sales tax on. I'm the biggest supporter in the world of public education, but a 22% increase? Come on, people, this is ridiculous. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goldschlager.
Glenn, I've been spending the last year of my life on this state question, and for the entire year I've been wondering what Glenn Goldschlager was going to say. So now I know, and I'm really happy. I think this is the second thing we've ever agreed on, so I'll mark it down in the book.
Any further discussion?
I got something to say, and I realize that before the end of the night, if we vote to support this resolution, that we're going to be labeled as anti-teacher and anti-education, and I think that's probably farther from the truth than anything. I support the schools, I support the teachers. I think they're underpaid and understaffed, but I think that the state government has ignored this issue of education, and it became even more clear to me when this last session they took little or no action at all in trying to solve this problem. This goes back to when the state voted to, they sold us this bill of goods on the lottery was going to solve the educational system problems, and it hasn't. Oklahoma is the only state in the union that restricts cities' taxing authority for operating expenses to sales tax. As a result of the sales tax issues, right now municipalities are pitted against each other in trying to get retailers and developers to move into their cities. If the sales tax initiative that is being presented passes, we're going to be in odds with the school systems too, which is, we don't need that, especially in our society. The first thing that I think needs to happen is that in Oklahoma, there are over 500 independent school districts. Each of those has a superintendent. One example is in LaFleur County in southeastern Oklahoma. That county has less than 1/10 of the population that Oklahoma County has. They have 17 school districts in that county. Oklahoma County only has 15 school districts. I believe the state needs to work on doing some consolidation, because the administration's level, the pay for the superintendent, that's taking up a lot of the funding. Another step would be if they would get the county assessors under some kind of control. There was a study that was done by the Tax Commission at the request of the state auditor that found that 52 of the 77 counties in Oklahoma in 2014 charged less than what was the fair market value on property taxes for their property in their county. That resulted in a shortfall of $192 million in property taxes that weren't collected. Not all of that would have gone to the school districts, but a vast majority of it would have gone to. In 2015, another study was done, and they found that 3 counties were in 100% compliance with their assessments: Oklahoma, Canadian, and Tulsa. It's so bad in some of these counties that the State Board of Equalization has warned these counties that their assessor's office could have their paychecks suspended and their offices taken over by the state. The issue there is assessors are failing to go out and properly assess these properties because they don't want to raise taxes because they're elected. You know, $192 million in a shortfall just because they're not doing their job is significant. If you take the numbers, there's 42,500 teachers approximately in the state of Oklahoma. If you do the math at $5,000 per raise, that comes to $212.5 million. That's only a gap of $20 million if the county assessors would just do their job. Another issue that's, I think, is being lost in this process is they're using the teacher's raise as why everybody wants to support this. And a lot of people have the misconception that a lot of this money's going to the teachers. It's not. Like Glenn was saying, it's 1 cent sales tax. If you put it on a dollar, 59.5 cents is going to the teachers and their raises. 19 and a quarter cents is going to higher education, the University of Oklahoma, Oklahoma State. 10 cents of that is going to starting new programs for reading and graduation. 8 cents will be used by the state education department for increasing access and quality of voluntary early learning opportunities. And 3 and a quarter of that cents goes to career and technology education. It's not going to the teachers, which is the people that really need it. In my opinion, that if this doesn't pass, I'm committed, and I hope the rest of y'all are, to work with the Mid-Dale schools and try to help them. Because our tax dollars, the money that you spend in Midwest City, the sales tax, doesn't stay here. It's going to be divided up by a formula by the state, and that money is not going to all stay locally. And that's the important thing. The state needs to cut wasteful spending. They need to explore other options on revenue for the cities, one of which is the internet sales. We are losing a significant amount of money on the internet sales, and the state has done nothing on that. And I can't support that or this issue until the state has done everything they can to fix this problem, and they haven't.
Thank you, Mr. Byrne. And I might want to add to that, this council was one of the first councils in the metropolitan area that reached out to our school district, Jones being the first, to offer assistance in the way of utility rate decreases, which that didn't come to fruition, but we did offer to pick up the salary of our school resource officer to alleviate some burden on our school system. So I think the fact that we were one of the first to do that sends a clear message that we're obviously in support of our school system. Our school system is a very vital part of our overall economic health in this city, and we will, as a collective body, do everything we can to support them.
I have one quick fun fact. I loved Councilman Burns' comments there. It's very interesting that on each line item in State Question 779, it's tied to a particular expenditure, except for the higher education component, which goes to higher education in general, or the pursuit of education. Mr. Bourne gave himself free rein with his funds, but made everybody else abide by the rules. That's very disingenuous, and so I hope we all support this resolution.
And as a final note, I did personally reach out to Dr. Cobb, the superintendent of Mid-Dale Schools, and also Dr. Webb, the president of Rose State, to advise them when we were voting on this tonight, so they weren't surprised or taken by surprise by our stance. With all that said, I would entertain a motion.
Move to approve the resolutions.
Excuse me,
We have.
I'm sorry, Mr. Graham.
and you want to do these one at a time, and you've been talking about 779, so you'll want a motion on 779, and then you can come back and talk about 777, which is the constitutional amendments.
Ed, are you wanting to talk about 779 or 777? 9. Stand up.
Go ahead, Mr. Graham.
All right. Edward Graham, 3605 Bella Vista. Thank you for letting me talk. Actually, the case you pointed out of the legislature not doing their job is probably the reason why I support this, and a lot of people do in the state, is they won't do their job, and this funding for teacher stuff is not going to be resolved, or the schools, by the legislature. This is the citizens' response. It's led by a great academic leader and former senator down there, but it is the citizen response to the legislature not doing anything. And you pointed out sales tax and property tax. Right now, the cities are funded by sales tax, Midwest City, for the most part. Schools by property tax. You pointed out they're not grabbing all they could, the assessors, etc. I will point out that you're not probably against this from what the mayor said in some of the neighborhood associations, that raising this sales tax a penny, I better watch my percentages because as you pointed out, it's kind of, you can get lost in statistics, that it kind of encroaches in your space, if you want to call it that, or for potential revenue, where the sales tax would get so high, you've got nowhere else to go as a city to maybe raise it higher if you need to go. That's more or less what it is. I mean, there is an upward limit to what folks will stand, if you understand my drift. But you, in a sense, have encroached on the school districts. I want revenue. In that, you don't just have city property set aside tax exempt. You've got a lot of properties around the city that have commercial businesses on them that have been moved out to the property tax exempt category. And you know there's a lot of them, including vacant land. If you really want to help the schools, aside from this state question, start selling them so that they generate property tax, such as like this assessor's better management for here. You've encroached on the school district, and they've kind of been quiet as 29th Street, the Academy, and who knows how many acres over there near McDonald's have become city land and become tax exempt. So please consider that before you say they are encroaching by the state question. And I'm not saying them, but the taxpayers are encroaching on your revenue. You've at least this city has encroached on the revenue of the schools. The school where my son goes, they lost a teacher. I'm pretty sure that one of those properties, had they been on the revenue books here, would have been a teacher's salary or 2 or 3 in Middale schools. So it does equate. The biggest revenue, biggest labor, the biggest cost in schools is flat out salaries for teachers. So $80,000, $50,000 is a teacher. And when you've got those properties over there tax exempt, you're hurting the school district. So think about that. It obviously helps business. It helps the companies that these businesses pay the rent to. They don't have property tax, et cetera. But please look into that. I think you can help the schools additionally to the, you can help them. That's all I had to say. Right to farm. Sounds a little crazy, but I can see people challenging citations they get that I'm growing sunflowers. I'm a farmer of sunflowers, and they challenge ordinance. I mean, it's kind of a crazy constitutional thing that I think who knows the way that's going to go when folks decide that I'm allowed to farm worms, sunflowers, weeds. I don't know. It could get a little crazy there. So there's some unintended consequences, which I think the city has pointed out why they're against this. Thank you.
I have a question for you, sir, over here.
Oh, me?
This way.
Oh. Go ahead.
We've had this talk before, and it drives me bonkers when we have it about the municipally owned property. Had the municipality not gotten involved in economic development, we'd have a lot of lots that are not developed. We have a lot of places where the private sector wasn't creating growth. So would you rather have large lots of land that were never developed, or the municipality stepping in, developing that land, having time for a TIF, and then turning it back over to the tax rolls? If you have.
When do you turn it over?
When the TIF expires.
I agree with you, but when are you turning them over?
Do we have a
Some
big
of them
one
have
in-
been on the books for a long time, like a decade or more, and you haven't turned them over.
We have one coming off pretty quick, right? A TIF
Yes,
going off the books
yes.
this year?
We probably have one more year left on.
And I think it's about
partial year of-
$660,000, if I heard that right upstairs. So when they're expired, they do get turned back
Not
over.
the TIF. I'm talking about the ones that are owned.
I understand that, but that number, if the
For
municipality
example,
didn't get
when will
involved.
29th Street be?
Well, there's
When will
the
that be turned
TIF,
over?
there's the tax increment finance district, which will be paid off, which will then allow all of the taxes that are being collected on 29th Street in the TIF district to flow to all of the taxing entities.
Such
Now-
as the property
now
tax, like the school district?
The real estate, however, at this point, is still in the name, with the exception of the Target property. The real estate, the land value, is still within the name of the city. So unless and until that property is sold, it will be tax exempt, but all of the improvements and the improvements on the property and the contents will all be taxed.
And my understanding
Does that help
is
the
the
school?
property
Yes,
tax that
absolutely.
Target pays is greater than all the property tax from all the houses, apartments, and businesses that were there before.
I'm not arguing about what you did on
But-
creating the
but-
29th Street Mall, but,
Well, you'd asked about that specifically, though. I think
Yeah.
that's why you gave you that.
no, I'm not
example.
saying that. They probably did a good thing doing that, but getting these off city payroll, city ownership of the property, I think would also help the schools, because it is property tax. And when it's deeded over to the city, am I right, they're property tax exempt.
That's correct.
So that's what I'm talking about. We have a lot of properties that are like this building here. I got that. That shouldn't be generating property tax. But other properties that are vacant, such as the big tract of land near 29th and Douglas and 29th Street, the underlying deed is in the city, and they're not generating property taxes for the schools.
Not to try and shut you down anyway, because I'm not, but isn't this something that would be better under new business, because we've kind of gotten off of 779 and as to what the city's responsibilities are with property that we own. We've kind of gone down a rabbit hole.
You may be right, so add it to new
But I'm not
business for
saying
discussion.
that, yeah, I'm saying that to move it forward, could we add that to new business if that's what, but
It's something I
remember,
want
we
you to
can't-
think about when you're
Well,
thinking
I'd
about
like to
helping
add-
schools.
I'd like to add one on your comment. For example, the property on 29th you're referring to. Let's say where St. Anthony is, the new hospital. I remember before the hospital went in, the previous property owner paid $300 a year for that parcel. $300 a year. Now it's probably $7,000. Now the property that you're speaking of on 29th Street, before the city bought it, the property taxes might have been a few thousand a year. And it's a double-edged sword, I think what Daniel's trying to say. So it's $2,000 a year. The city purchased it, which back then, I mean, that's another story. But their hopes is to get something much, much larger than what would have ever gone there. And so they're trying to elevate it
How long
from
have
the
they
few
had it?
thousand. Well, but still, they're hoping to elevate it someday to, you know, hundreds of thousands of
Haven't you had
dollars.
it for 10 years?
Yeah, and I don't know about that, but part of me too, there's 300 or 400 acres out there that falls in the Midwest City and Oklahoma City limits. And if the school system, the way I see it, if they really wanted to work that 300 acres, they should hope that a lot of retail goes in all of that area to generate, you know, if you could convert the 5 acres where St. Anthony went from $300 to $70,000 a year. So if they could do that on 5 acres, what would the ratios be on the other 300 acres? But
I think
it's a
all I'm saying
double-edged
is,
sword.
do what you're doing, but then quickly get out so that it actually gets back on the school rolls.
Oh, no,
That's all I'm saying.
Mr. Graham, trust me, we are trying.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much for your comments. Yes, sir, Mr. Bernard.
Well, my name's Shane Bernard, 9320 Pear Street. What I said upstairs about 777, don't really need to discuss that, but I just wanted to touch on what Councilman Burns said about being labeled, about if y'all take this decision and agree to this, that you're going to be labeled anti-teacher. I've always taught my kids that if you believe something is right and in your heart it's just and moral, don't worry about labels. Do what's right. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bernard. We appreciate the comment. We need to go ahead and move. We have
Move to approve the resolution.
To address these resolutions one at a time. The majority of our discussion's been on 779. I'd entertain a motion.
Let's make a motion, I'll make a motion to pass as is written the portion for 779.
Second motion.
We got a motion and a second. Go ahead, roll call vote, please.
1,
Yes.
2,
Yes.
3,
No.
4,
Yes.
5, 6. Mayor?
Yes. Move into discussion of 777. Is there any discussion on resolution for House, or State Question 777?
It's just a terrible idea, this 777. It's just terrible.
I will
Move
go
to
ahead and
approve.
entertain a motion.
Yeah,
Move to
we're-
Charles,
approve.
are you wanting to talk?
Oh, yes, sir, Mr. Thompson.
Charles Thompson, 10-400 Northeast Fourth. I just want to applaud the council for bringing both of these issues up, and Councilman Byrne, you speak extremely well on this subject. And one of the reasons that got me into politics was looking at the salaries and stuff that we pay teachers. If you look at the state rolls, the OU and OSU coaches are the highest paid people on the state rolls, and it doesn't get any better as you go down through the administration. And I think it's very disingenuous for a retired Oklahoma senator to do this to the people of Oklahoma in the taxes and stuff. And I applaud the council for reading these bills for what they are, and I completely agree that they should not be passed. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Thompson.
And I'd like to say about 777 is I've seen some people call it freedom to farm, and so people are thinking it's for the small farmer. This is nothing but a handout to big corporations. Hog farms in the Panhandle, poultry farms up in the Northeast, to allow them to basically subjugate the rights that the state and the city has over our water rights. So this isn't an anti-farming measure that we're taking in any way, shape, or form, in my opinion. This is an anti-corporate farming handout.
I have two big concerns. First one is a constitutional protection for one class or one industry. That's really scary in my opinion. The second one is it's going to prohibit municipalities from creating laws. I use the example of having 1,000 broiler chicken farm in a residential area. You might need an ordinance to fix that, but this would, I think, likely stop you from doing that. Municipalities should have that right. It's very scary.
Any further discussion? Entertain
Make a motion to approve the
pass.
item.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Go ahead, roll call vote.
1,
Yes.
2,
Yes.
3,
Yes.
4,
Yes.
5, 6. Mayor?
Yes. Thank you for that spirited discussion on these two issues. Go ahead with the next item.
This is discussion consideration of passing and approving a resolution casting one vote for one of the nominees running to fill the open position of District 6 trustee on the Board of Trustees of the Oklahoma Municipal Retirement Fund for a 5-year term from October 28, 2016 through September 2021. You have 3 names before you. You can choose to nominate that, or either one, any of those 3, or I guess you could choose not to nominate anyone.
I don't know anyone well enough to stand up with them, so I would be a take no action person.
Well, it would be by August 30th of this year. As I said to you upstairs, I personally know John Shugart. He's been on the OMRF board for a number of years. Tim Rooney is a city manager that's returned to Oklahoma from Alaska. However, he served as an assistant city manager in Owasso previous to his employment in Alaska. So either of those 2 people are individuals that I'm familiar with and would recommend or support.
You're shooting us a tie there. Do you feel uncomfortable shooting us a 1-2?
I'll say Mr. Rooney just to breathe a little new life into the organization.
I'll make a motion for Mr. Rooney.
Second motion.
I have a motion and I have a second for Mr. Rooney. Go ahead with the roll call vote.
1,
Yes.
2,
Yes.
3,
Yes.
4,
Yes.
5, 6. Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson.
We move into the new business, public discussion. Any new business or public discussion you want to bring forth to the council?
My
Mike Stroh, Neighborhood Services Director, 8726 Southeast 15th. I have two things. One, I'd like to thank the council for their support, the residents and city staff that helped with our SOS program. We generated approximately, our best guess is $18,000 worth of supplies that we delivered to the schools, and that was from the citizens of Midwest City's help with those shopping. So I wanted to publicly thank them. Number two is a gentleman's last council meeting that I'd like to recognize, because I don't think you'll ever get him back here to recognize him. Out with over 32 years, he's retiring and he won't be back. So Bill Janacek's going to be gone. So
Bill's the man, Bill.
Good luck in retirement.
Man.
Thank you.
We will get him back. One time.
We'll go handcuff them, won't we?
Yes, we will. I know people. We have your address. Any further new business or public discussion?
Move to adjourn.
Second motion.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry. Roll call vote.
1.
Yes.
2.
Actually,
Yes.
actually, with the power of the chair, I move to adjourn. We are hereby adjourned.
I thought Sandy would
that
come
one.
back to the
That's
diet.
the makeup.
I learned something.
That's the makeup for having to vote, is let the mayor use the power of the chair to adjourn.
Okay, I now call the municipal authority to order. We do have a consent agenda. These items are placed on the consent agenda so the trustees of the Midwest City Municipal Authority by unanimous consent can approve routine agenda items by one motion. If any item proposed on the consent agenda does not meet with the approval of the trustees or the members of the audience wish to discuss a proposed item with the trustees, that item will be removed and heard in regular order.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Go ahead with roll call vote.
1.
Yes.
2.
Yes.
3.
Aye.
4.
Aye.
5. 6. Mayor.
Aye. Now move to the new business public discussion of this agenda. Anybody have anything to bring forth to the authority? Hearing none and using the power of the chair, I move to adjourn.
I so like the power of that chair.
I do too. We'll now move to the Municipal Hospital Authority agenda. Call this meeting to order. This too has a consent agenda. These items are placed on consent agenda so that the trustees of the Midwest City Municipal Authority by unanimous consent can approve routine agenda items by one motion. If any proposed item on the consent agenda does not meet with the approval of all trustees or members of the audience wish to discuss any proposed item with the trustees, that item can be removed and heard in regular order. I entertain a motion to approve. I have a motion and a second. Go ahead with the roll call vote.
1.
Yes.
2.
Yes.
3.
Aye.
4.
Yes.
5. 6. Mayor.
Aye. We do have one discussion item. Go ahead.
That is discussion, consideration of action to reallocate assets, change fund managers, or make changes in the statement of investment policy guidelines and objectives. No action is necessary on this item.
We now move to the public discussion, new business. Anybody having anything to bring before to the trustees of the hospital authority? Hearing none, entertain a motion to move to executive session.
Yeah, let me read the executive session. Discussion, consideration of one entering into executive session as allowed under 25 OS Section 307C10 to confer on matters pertaining to economic development, including the transfer of property, financing, or the creation of a proposal to entice a business to remain or to locate within the city, and 2, an open session authorizing the general manager administrator to take action based on the discussion in executive session.
Have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
1.
Yes.
2.
Yes.
3.
Yes.
4.
Yes.
5. 6. Mayor.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be moving to executive session. We will return.